You know, I've been thinking of lockdown a lot because I actually am in it. So, sorry about that, Victoria. I kind of was just sitting there for about 6 months being like, get over yourselves, fuck. Sitting at home is mad. At least you got payments! Look, not that we need it because we can just do it remotely. I'm sure there's other people that are suffering right now, and you probably don't need to hear this. However, this is the Jordan Shakes channel, and so we are just looking at pretty much exactly the opposite thing as what we're looking for society, because I really do think that what is good for the goose is not good for the gander. And I think that is actually another reason why people that are just so focused on business really have a very selfish attitude on life, because kind of what is good for you in a business kind of just expands your own business, but it's not necessarily thinking about the wider impacts of society. Now, with that disclaimer as always, let's get down to business, because I think that COVID has been beneficial to the wider economy in the long run. And I've got no data at all to prove that, but I'm just thinking about how much our business has changed ever since this lockdown continued, let alone COVID over the last 18 months. But just in that time, yes, there's been a lot of shrinkage in revenue, but there has also been a lot of re-engineering in how the organization has been structured, how effective the organization is, what we can and can't get by with, and also other streams of revenue. A classic example of that, for instance, is that we've all started to realize, oh, wait, we could probably just Twitch stand-up shows. That would never happen before. That is a source of revenue from all the people that could never get to one of the major cities in this country, and now, from their remote areas, they can tune in. That's just one teeny example. But the other one, the glaringly obvious one for me, is that as of a result of this lockdown, I've been able to do these things a lot more remotely. I've just not been able to speak to anybody face to face. We've all just been in our little digital spaceship world. But I have to talk to people via Zoom. And then I started to realize, fuck, hang on, when this is all over, maybe I don't have to live in Sydney. And that is a dream come true for me. I hate Sydney. No offense. I mean, there's beautiful aspects of it, don't get me wrong. But there's also a lot of cunts. And I really liked living in rough areas like Lithgow, right? My dream would to just be buy one of those really scary haunted manors in Lithgow for like $70 and live there for the rest of my life. That'd be great. And I think that is possible now. I mean, obviously you always understand these things. You might have just heard it here and there, a glimpse of somebody saying, yeah, well, you can just do everything on the internet these days, but it doesn't actually gel until you are faced with something that forces you to change. This is what I want to get to, and I want you to write this down, which is that the species that survive the longest are those that are most adaptable. There's some genetic factors into that, obviously, because some species aren't adaptable, like those mooses that had those horns that went too long and their heads cracked. It's a really sad thought, isn't it? Just a baby moose being born. But that happened. That was a fact. And I definitely know that because I was around when those were there, clearly. And yes, I think that when you are faced with the grim reality of your life is different now, what are you going to do? There is a natural inclination, and this is where we go into that victim mentality thing of people just sitting around and thinking of excuses and wallowing on the fact that their life has changed, and so they just focus on that. Whereas when they're not focusing on is the opportunity, and the opportunity is purely that your mind is being forced, it's being challenged to think of other ways to do things, because you don't. That's another thing about the ruling class in life, right? This is the thing that I have an issue with. I don't have an issue with someone being rich as long as they earned it. I hate the idea of somebody just getting a free ride in life. I think everybody does, right? That's the same reason that there's always just like dole bludgers. And it's like, yeah, dole bludgers suck, but there is dole bludgers in the elite class as well. It's just that they have access to a far greater Centrelink than we do. But if somebody, is mega wealthy, got there on their own feet, even if they are from a wealthy family, but they are just competent at what they do, more power to you. I actually don't really have an issue with that. It's when somebody is bad at what they do, but just because of their circumstances, they get to coast on through life. That's what I like about crises, because in effect, really, okay, yes, we can all just sit there and be like, which is, I do it all the time. I've made a hobby out of it. In fact, I've made a career out of it, but I also have to remind myself, which is another reason why I do these videos, just in case you're a new subscriber, is just to remind myself of the basic principles that got me to where I am in the first place. But I would like that to just be impressed upon you, that the people that, like, yeah, okay, you might be right, lower down the socioeconomic ladder, but you're still way better off than a bilby after a bushfire. Right? You are doing so much better than them. And if you think about it, it's just like, you have to stay at home now. Oh no! You also don't have any access to money. Oh, I'm going to have to go on Centrelink, which is easy for me to say again because I'm not there, but I am, but I'm saying that comparatively to a lot of other people, even when they're just getting rid of JobKeeper and JobSeeker, comparatively to the rest of the world, they would be looking at you with envy if you were forced to go on Centrelink. The fact that you have that net is incredible. And even if you are in those situations, I'm not saying that you have access to the same resources that, say, I do, but I have been in your situation, not during COVID, but I have been there before. I've been at the lowest rungs. And that's what I'm talking about, is that when you get this mentality of like, what can I do with what I've got? When you really start thinking about life like that, you are able to marshal the resources around you in ingenuitive ways and get the most out of them. That's what we're talking about here. Getting the most juice out of an orange. So, if you are in one of those positions, I want you to take stock. I want you to take stock of not sitting there and wallowing, because that's all the news will do, and that's all I do on Friendly Geordies as well, and I do think that there is a necessary service for the news, definitely. But there is also a necessary service for you to build up your psychology and to imprint these kind of principles into it, which is, this is the one, right here, that those who are most adaptable are the survivors. So, I want you, no matter what your situation is, I just want you to think about, if you are in lockdown currently, or you have been in lockdown, I just want you to think about what has made your life better as a result of being in lockdown. What are the things that have made you think about things in a different way that you never thought about before, just because you were able to coast through, because society was just giving you kind of a one-up and you had all your little problems in life? Because if you notice that, have you noticed that as soon as you fix one problem, just another one instantly inserts into your mind of like, oh, what about this? But the thing is that hopefully what's happening is that those problems are becoming less and less severe as you move up. And the way that you move up is through adaptability. What am I talking about with adaptability here? I am talking about your brain working in a different way, that you have gotten yourself to behave in a way that you weren't behaving for in lockdown before. I gave you a couple of examples then, which is that I think that we have been able to reorganize our business in such a way that has actually made it a lot more effective, which is just talking to each other through phones. Now, I don't enjoy it as much because you don't have the human experience, but I'll tell you one thing, it gets the job done a lot quicker. We've been able to produce a lot more content, even when we had all the arrest stuff and all that stuff going on. You know how we just weren't allowed to put anything out for a month? In that time, it was just like, well, why don't we just stockpile? That's an adaptable mindset, as opposed to someone that's like, what do you mean I can't get anything out? Fuck it. There's also the upsides of, like, say that you are running a business, for instance, and this is what was happening all throughout COVID last year until, again, we started reorganizing what we were doing, and then we actually came out with some genius stuff because everybody started thinking about things differently, and so we started doing content differently. I think that happened to everyone, from the producers to the editors to myself. We all thought of different ways to do things, and it was because we were afforded that time as opposed to it just going through the same motions. And I think that as a result of that, our income streams have become steadier. We've been able to think about that in different ways. Like these are all changes that have happened because COVID happened. Because that's the whole thing. It's just like life, you will just keep coasting along until you are swept up in a tornado. And then you have to think, fuck, how do I get out of the tornado? And when you do get out of the tornado, you're just like, oh, okay, well, maybe my glider doesn't have to be this wide. Maybe it could be a little bit narrower. Maybe that makes me go faster. I don't know how aerodynamics works at all. It's probably the exact opposite of that. But you get where I'm coming from. And you also get what's coming next. That's right. I'm going to ask you to sign up to the Jordan Shanks Patreon, because I think that if you can just fill your head with all of these ideas, and you can fill them for less than a cup of coffee, if you fill yourself with these ideas, you are making yourself more adaptable. What are we talking about there? Survivability. What are we talking about? People that thrive. If they have that mindset pumped into them of like, well, one person is looking at that situation and being like, this is fucked, and the other person is thinking about, how can I work around this so that I can form a service given these circumstances. That has happened to a bunch of other people that I know. A bunch of enterprising individuals that I know have made the usual apps. But the thing is, those apps, honestly, I think a few of them are like multi-million dollar ideas, and they just kind of just took off. And the reason that they took off is because everybody's just become a little more electronic. So the economy itself, I think, has become a little more like, it's just become more efficient. Anyway, thank you so much for, not now, like it won't be predicted in the figures now, but when everything goes back to normal, where you have your choice now of, oh, I can do the things that worked before, and I can keep the things that are working for me now. So you can combine those two things. I really do think that the economy will look stronger. It'll look more agile and lean. Sign up to Jordan Shanks. Thank you for watching.